We live in a world with finite materials.
We are throwing an awful lot of electronics,
Plastic food, carpets,
clothing
away. It's a waste of precious materials.
If we could build an economy that would use things rather than use them up, we could build a future that really could work in the long term.
You design the product in a way that
Can be taken apart. Once the consumer has finished using them,
you remanufacture it and give it out again. You can reduce your production costs hugely if applied correctly.
Instead of garments ending up in landfill.
companies can repurpose it, reuse it, making profit out of their waste.
we take some resources from nature and bring it back in the form of nutrients.
It's very much a natural cycle.
We use 70% less water than conventional agricultural methods.
Our packaging is not a waste, it's something that you can consume and eat.
We redesign everyday products to make them fully recyclable.
We farm as close to nature as is possible.
The H&M Group has set ambitious targets to use 100% sustainably sourced materials.
There is a lot of conversation about not buying clothes, but different models where you can rent clothing.
We develop fully modular headphones that we offer on a subscription basis.
The circular economy itself is inevitable in my view.
It's not one fix, it's about the entire system being redesigned.
this is, to me, the only way to fight climate change, to fight pollution, to fight waste.
This is a business model that stacks up.
Global companies cannot survive in the future without transitioning towards a circular economy. That is a really exciting future.
When you throw something away, where is away? There is no away. We live in a world with finite materials. Products are made cheaper and cheaper, disposable and more disposable on a daily basis. You take raw materials, you process the raw material, you make a product, then the consumer uses it for a certain amount of time, and then it's thrown in the bin.
Plastic bottles and ketchup sachets, you use them for probably a few minutes. And then the packaging is on the environment for several years.
Waste. Sheer, needless, unforgivable waste.
What we are offering is a new point of view of how to think about packaging and how to challenge the standards that currently plastic packaging is giving us. We are trying to match the shelf life of the product that is inside of the packaging with the shelf life of the packaging itself. Ojo, it's a membrane made of seaweed that is biodegradable and as well edible. You just consume it and then the packaging won't be there for more than a few weeks.
Carpet only get 3% recycling rate these days in Europe, a little over 10% in some states in the US, but that's really where we are today and it's not enough. What we try to do is design it from the start in a way that it can come back in the same product.
Once the consumer has finished using them, they can be taken apart and then put in the respective loops and processed and close the loop again and again.
We are looking at mattresses, carpets, furniture that is today made out of particle board, MDF or similar materials. Typically, glues are made to make two different layers bond for as long as possible, the strongest possible. And after use, you can never separate the two. It's a very sad story, and it all ends up in landfill or it's burned. It took a bit of material science and smart thinking of my colleagues really to design a glue that could decouple after use very easily with a frequency signal. The mattress has a lot of material in it, so the residual value is pretty big if it's designed well. And of course for the manufacturers, it makes sense to know when I change my mattress or my carpet, because then I'm in the market for a new product. And if you have mattresses for a hotel chain, and why not have a maintenance contract for those hotels to make sure that you have a constant quality. With our adhesive you can change different layers at different moments in time, because it's not always glued together for eternity.
So we are working now on toiletries, putting together several trials with hotels, where we will be able to deliver small volumes of shampoos and gels.
There's a lot of innovations out there that has not yet taken mainstream. And what is really important is to make sure that those innovations that can save us are taken and scaled up. This is, to me, the only way for us to fight climate change and to fight pollution, to fight waste.
Climate change, biodiversity, human health. What's the connection? Food.
Changing our food system is the most impactful thing we can do to address climate change, create healthy cities, and rebuild biodiversity. You've probably been thinking about how you and your organization can play your part.
Maybe you've created your own targets and manifestos, are supporting the Sustainable Development Goals or Paris Climate Agreement. But that's the easy part. The real challenge is knowing where you can have the biggest impact. The answer lies in cities.
That's where 80% of food will be consumed by 2050. By using circular economy thinking, cities and the businesses and people in them have the power to transform the food system.
But what would that look like? Food would be grown in ways that support ecosystems instead of damaging them. And it would be sourced locally when it makes sense. We would make the most of food, avoiding edible food waste, and using organic byproducts to improve soil fertility, to grow new food, along with other uses. At the outset, chefs and food brands would consider these principles when they're planning what goes on our plate. It sounds simple, but it's one of the most ambitious and profound challenges of our time. If we get it right, we'll help avoid a climate crisis, restore biodiversity, improve human health, and reconnect people with food, all while creating new business opportunities. The Ellen MacArthur Foundation's Food Initiative brings together pioneering restaurants, supermarkets, food brands, and governments to ignite a transition towards a regenerative food system.
We need to look after, as that's what we've got and that's what future generations are going to have. Applying fertilisers and artificial substances isn't doing it the world of good.
To me, circular economy is the closest that you can get to nature. You can eat an apple, and once you throw it with the small seeds of the apple, a new apple tree will grow and new apples will come. The loop is closed.
We farm as close to nature as is possible. We're sat in the milking parlour at the moment, so we milk water buffalo here to make mozzarella cheese with their milk. During the summer, we harvest our grain. The animals eat the grain, then put it back onto the straw, mix it in with the straw, and then it gets spread back out onto the fields. It rots back down into the soil, releasing nitrogen and other key elements naturally rather than putting artificial fertilisers on. Using what we have and what the animals produce is what would have happened in nature.
Grown Underground is an urban farm. It's situated 33 metres underneath the streets of London in a World War II air raid shelter. That is tube 4 stories above us, you can hear. So hydroponics is a method of growing without the aid of soil. Nutrient is carried to the roots of the plant through water. The water returns back down to the lower level. It's filtered, cleaned, more nutrients added, and is ready to recycle again. We use 70% less water than conventional agricultural methods. Hydroponics is very good for that efficiency of use of resources.